I've got a signal saying we're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August 20th meeting of the Lake Lemon Conservancy District, rescheduled from what was to be our last Saturday meeting of the summer, unfortunately due to the COVID concerns. Appreciate you joining us. We will be possibly welcoming Debbie Ladyman in a little bit late via audio. And Michael Klitzing is in a meeting that is running long and may join us late as well. Once again, guys, we'll just do a roll call vote on anything that needs a vote, and raise your hand if you are trying to speak. Mary Jane, help me be a second set of eyes because I sometimes miss.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at 40 things at once. All right. With all of that, I would request looking at an approval of the July 18th board meeting minutes.
I would make that motion with one correction.
Okay.
It said that Laura seconded the motion for the bond resolution and she wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, well, she's a wizard. Okay. I don't remember who seconded that.
We'll go back to the video and
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very well.
But with
Anybody
that,
else?
I would make a motion.
All right. Anyone else? Any concerns or corrections? All right. There being none, I would request a second on that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right. If there is none, I would call for a vote. We'll start with you, Laura.
Abstain.
Okay. Mary Jane?
Aye.
Michael Blackwell?
Aye.
Les?
Aye.
Pam? Aye. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to the treasurer's report, Mr. Blackwell. This is kind of your show tonight,
Well,
that time of year.
$62,530 in income for July and $64,089 in expenses. Looks like we had an insurance draw, we had a consulting engineer draw, and then of course the remainder is probably salaries, and then not a real good month for July, but hopefully August will improve. But net income of minus $1,559 for the month. Moving ahead, no discussion on that. I will entertain a motion to approve the vouchers for July, the report of claims.
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Madam Chair.
Aye.
Mary Jane.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Les.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Hey,
Does
Mike,
look like Debbie may be trying to join us. Debbie, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. How about the rest of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, you did it.
Well, I've actually pulled over in Mike's fire station parking lot.
Hey, Debbie,
Yeah.
count how many police cars are in that parking lot. I've got another request for a police car to park in there.
Oh. Well, there is one, I see. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike, still you on C, I believe.
Okay, I
Resolution.
did not attend the workshop. I had to work that day and I was busy that day. Adam did attend. And so like we did last year, we thought we would spend more money in our budget than what we had figured. So since we have $1 million proposed in our 2020 budget, and we're only going to spend 235,000 of that, we need to do a $765,000 2020 budget reduction. So did I explain that correctly?
Correct. Yeah, we had the 1.2 million in the budget. Since we'll only be spending the money and for the dump truck loan and the disposal site creation, we need to show that we're not going to be actually spending the money for the dredging. That'll be next year. So we're going to do a reduction of $765,000 for the sediment mitigation, line item 6750, as those monies will be spent in the 2021 fiscal year.
Okay,
Motion to approve?
Okay, do we have a second?
second,
Okay, motion's made, seconded. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote again. Pam,
Aye.
Mary Jane,
aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Les,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. All right, that brings us to the manager's report. Adam?
All right, for barge operations update, we have removed 5,427 yards so far. We're a little over halfway done up in the Dorothy Lane channel. It's been kind of a long process with how tight it is and how far we have to truck sediment, so it's a pretty slow dig. We've also had a really good year so far for private, and even though we only have the July financials, we're actually just above $39,000 so far in private. We have had a couple equipment issues, dredging in the channels areas, and when we are down there, we have been picking up some of the private jobs on the side to stay busy and have some revenue generation. So we have brought in over 39,000 as of tomorrow's deposit for that. Vegetation control, we did our first lotus and spatterdock treatment on July 20th, along with some mixed submersed, primarily on the east end and the Chitwood channels. The follow-up for that, since it is a two-part spray, was on August 3rd. We treated 24 acres of emergent, which would be spatterdock and lotus, and we treated a little over 8 acres of submersed vegetation. I have had a...
Please.
What was
Sorry,
that?
Adam.
No, go ahead.
I told one of my golfing buddies today that I'd ask you. They've got milfoil growing upwards towards their dock area. Now, are they allowed to spray that milfoil?
Technically, you can treat a small footage area right around there.
What would you suggest that they use?
There's some different stuff. I would let me go ahead and give me a call afterwards.
Okay.
We can talk about that specifically. There are certain type of chemicals that you can use. Definitely not Roundup, but for small treatments. Is it here on the lake or is it elsewhere?
It's over in District 6.
And it's right around their dock. I
Yeah.
have some stuff that I can use for a spot treatment.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so just get a hold of me afterwards, and I can
Thank
probably
you.
take care of that. pretty
Awesome.
quick.
Thank you.
Oh, and for that, on that note, if they want to do it themselves, it used to be you had to apply through the office to get a permit and to be, instructed as to what were the right chemicals. We've done that
Yeah.
ourselves, so just
Well, I'm going back a few years, Madam Chair, when we also had a board member who, remember, he used to just pour 5-gallon buckets into the lake. So
Well, let's not do that.
old memories, like the corners of my mind, yes.
Yeah, if it's right around the
There-
dock, I
But
can
we
take
we
care
do
of
have some guidelines.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
Very good. Next up, we have management recommendations from IU water testing. And these were requested by the board and myself based on the reports that we have been getting. I do have Sarah Powers with IU and the Clean Lakes program. What we'll do is I can go over it initially or let Sarah do it just from the recommendations. We got a little bit of discussions on that. Is there a train going by somewhere?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
me. Let me,
I have my windows open.
yeah, me too. And I live
Me too.
close to the train track.
I'll put my mute on.
Sarah, would you like to just go ahead and read off the recommendations and I can lead up a discussion after that?
So we made, based on our conversation and conversations with Adam, I put 5 recommendations together. One is that the LLCD develop a harmful algal bloom response plan. The plan could or should include things like posting warning signs advisory messages and how those would be communicated to the public. So a public communication plan for that, possible signage for the beach, as well as the boat launch and the overflow pond, which hopefully in the future won't be a problem. And then an algal toxin testing plan. There is some rapid strip analysis test that can be utilized for recreation waters and drinking water sources, both. So those are available and options. The costs are, last I checked, which has been a number of years now, for I think a 10 test strip, and you can't quote me exactly on this because it's been a while, but I think for 10 test strips, it was roughly $500 for the kit. And then other things to do would be to reduce nutrient availability for the algal community. So things like increasing aquatic vegetation, particularly in that overflow pond where we see a lot of algae, which I got to have a firsthand experience with this morning. So that was fun and interesting. And then in addition to that, the third recommendation was that the LLCD should work with Monroe County and Brown County Health Department to find a solution to bacteria issues in the lake. Some of this work is already ongoing with a project over in Brown County, particularly where they're working on a sewer management plan for the county. So I can't share any of their data yet, but I have some of it, and we'll be getting more information on that in the future. We did also route to the Monroe County Health Department after this, and something we can come back to with more detailed questions. But we're working, basically we're at a stage where I know there was some comments on the particular Nob Hill region and discussion on that. Am I breaking up?
We
Little
can hear
bit.
you fine. The video is going a little slow, but we can hear you fine.
Just checking because I can turn the video off if needed. But basically the Monroe County Health Department has been working on that area, and they basically need someone from the board to submit a FOIA request. And I have that form, and then they will be happy to come to a board meeting and meet with you and discuss that in more detail. What they have already done, and ways that you can maybe partner to push that forward to deal with those issues there. The fourth recommendation is to implement a septic system testing program on a rotational basis, possibly. So testing those periodically, not everybody at the same time, but that might help with that. And then work with partners in the watershed to consider whether, when doing land applications of manure, because we're pretty sure last year the one spike at the beach did come from land application of manure. I heard on hearsay basis that right before that event occurred, there had been a land application of manure in the watershed that likely was what caused that spike specifically.
And I can, I'll touch back real quick on the Monroe and Brown County Health Departments. I had been talking just earlier in the week. Oh, I can't remember the name right now, but the lady that's heading the Lake Monroe plan, and you may know her name, Sarah, but she's been working with the Brown County Health Department. And actually what they're doing, they're looking in different spots in the Bean Blossom watershed and the Lake Monroe watershed, and they're actually doing spot testing to determine sources of E. coli, whether it be livestock and natural versus septic and human. State labs can actually tell now whether it's, animal or whether it was human E. coli. So that's one of the parts of the study, and I'll be really interested. And I've been in contact to be kept in the loop on that. So once I get some data for Bean Blossom, we'll definitely go ahead and share that.
Yeah, I'm partnering with the contractor on that project. We've been in a lot of communication as they developed sites. They worked to try to not just duplicate sites that we have historical data on, and we've also shared all of the past E. coli data that we have collected in the Lake Lemon watershed with them. So they have that.
And then as far as the rapid test, Sarah, it's essentially a one-time use for the strips and it just shows the presence or non-presence of the toxin, correct? And I would think, you know, at $500, I believe it'd be well worthwhile to go ahead and pick up a kit. We won't need to use them very often, but if we do see a bloom happening, they're a very suspect area, it'd be a good way to say, all right, there is a presence of toxin or not, then we could do additional testing through a lab. So I can go ahead and look into that if the board would like. I think that'd be a good initial first start. As far as signage, I think this fall we'll start working on an advisory plan. I know a lot of the state parks and beaches do have signs that say, you know, high, low, and medium risk as far as water quality. And that would probably be a good one to have definitely coming into the beach, the overflow pond and the ramp there.
And probably our ramp as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good one just to stay in communication on that. Is there any other?
Seems like the strips would help us get a jump on things before it got as bad as it has in the past. I mean, if we could do a rapid test.
The toxin, I don't know if we've had too many actually toxin producing events. I know in 2008 we had one. And I'm not sure if we've actually had toxin present since then, but
We haven't done toxin analysis for a while. I'll have to go back to results. We've been collecting toxins, but our lab hasn't had the capacity currently to test for toxins. So we did do a study though with IDEM, and we published a report with them, and I believe lemon probably would have been included in that. So I can go back and look at those results. I can't recall the years specifically that we did that, but we haven't done it for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, and really the biggest advantage of that is to get a jump on the public health side of that, to where if there are toxin presence, we can notify really quick. Mike, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, I did. I know there is at least 2 farmers at the bottom of Lick Creek Road that pump manure in their fields, and it's either once or twice a year. The year that we closed the beach because of the E. coli, that farmer had just pumped truckloads of manure into his field. And that's a floodplain field, if you know where I'm talking about. It's right before Lick Creek gets into Highway 45. And obviously, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but where do you think that manure goes after a high rain?
Yeah.
Lick Creek flows right into Bean Blossom Creek. So it would be, I can ask one of the guys in our district if they actually know when that guy's going to pump that in there, but it's truckloads of manure.
Yeah, it'd be good to know.
Hey,
Go ahead,
go
Debbie.
ahead. You can respond to Mike.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, it'd be worthwhile if I know who it is to reach out and just make sure, you know, they're looking at the weather in advance of doing it, because if you have a long dry period afterwards, the nutrients will get absorbed. But if you get a rain, you know, within 24, 48 hours, it washes right off the fields.
I had hoped that maybe he would qualify for an NSRG grant, you know, but then that's that 65-35 that he would have to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't see how we could even ask a farmer, you know, to put in 35% of the work when, you know, it really is no benefit to him. The benefit is for us.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Debbie,
Hey, this is Debbie.
Debbie,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the board needs to have, I appreciate these recommendations. I think it's good. We talked about these same recommendations last year. I don't know that we ever had them in writing. And I think that we need to put together a plan under each of those recommendations, you know, about what we're going to do and when we're going to do it and what our timeline is, you know, and what our next steps are, like, you know, this FOIA request and, the septic stuff. And, it just seems like lake quality, water quality is one of our main, goals, objectives, our responsibilities, I guess is what I'm looking for. So I guess I'd like to see recommendations from management on a little bit more detailed plan on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked before too about the septic testing. I believe Cordray Sweetwater, I talked to last year when this first came up, and they're actually on a rotating basis where different sections of the lake test each year. So it would be something where, maybe we're on a 7-year basis or on a 5-year basis, where we have one district test each year and then submit the results. And then we can absolutely mandate that, and that way we can capture them. It's not going to be everybody all at once. We could say, all right, this year, District 1, District 2, District 3 on a rotating basis. That way we know every, potentially 7 years, we've got a full check on all the septics around the lakes. And I also think once we get the data from the health department, that'll be nice to know how much is potentially coming in the creeks from septics outside of the Conservancy district, and potentially manure from the livestock. But yeah, we'll work on those, Deb.
To Adam, to Debbie's point, I'm wondering if this could be a subset of the manager-appointed Lake Health Task Group. Already a lot going on with that group, and it might require some additional folks, but to kind of give that to break that task down into a part that can be managed separately, but within.
Yeah, I can definitely bring that to the group, and we'll discuss that in the next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And maybe just for the get-go, though, we ought to do the FOIA request just to kind of see what we're dealing with. And that would help as this committee gets going.
Absolutely.
So who would do the FOIA? Would that be you or one of us, or?
Now, if they set a board member, we can send that to, I don't know who'd want to volunteer. I don't know, Pam, if you just want to do it as the chair to fill it out and send it to them, or.
I'm happy to do it unless someone feels strongly about it. I'm also happy to share.
I just re-forwarded you that, Adam, so it's at the top of your
All right, perfect.
email now.
Adam, why don't you send that to everyone tomorrow or later today, and I'm certainly happy to do it if nobody else feels strongly.
Will do.
I feel like as the chair, it would be good for you to do it. I mean, maybe Sarah and Adam kind of like fill in all the blanks and you review it and sign it or something like that. But, maybe that's kind of the process that we need. I don't know if you know what to ask for, I mean.
Sure, exactly.
Hard.
I'll get it prepared for you, Pam.
We'll collaborate.
Yeah, correct. All right, sounds good. Any more discussion on the recommendations?
Just a quick question. I remember it's been a year or so ago. I think we had a presentation by the folks that do the weed kill, or, vegetation treatment. And, they had a brochure that they handed out that had a bunch of other stuff in it, other things that they do. And it seemed like one of their products or services was installing an aerator in ponds. And I was wondering, is there, I'm asking Sarah, I guess, is there any merit to putting some aerators, maybe solar powered, in the overflow ponds? Does that really help algae, or were they just trying to sell us something?
Well, I'll tell you based on what we found today. So today's the first time, other than just grabbing samples from the edge of the shore, today's the first time I've gone in the overflow pond. Adam got me, supplied a kayak for me. Well, really Alex supplied a kayak, and Adam sherped it around for me today. And it's only about 2 meters deep in the center-ish part of the pond is what we found. So you're talking maybe 6 feet, and it was full of oxygen. It was very well oxygenated because there's so much algae in it. So that wouldn't help the problem. It's really in that pond. We haven't done the nutrient analysis yet. We just collected the samples this morning. But what we're thinking is there's a lot of nutrients in the pond, which is feeding all of that algae. And if you don't have plants or something else to consume those nutrients, you're going to have algae. So if you, just like if you were to kill all the plants in the lake, you're going to get a lot more algae. That's what has been the biggest positive of the vegetation in the lake, is that it prevents it from being just an algal pea soup, because it would be if not. So in this circumstance, particularly in that pond, I don't think an aerator would provide any benefit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, Sarah, you're more than welcome to stay and hang out, or you can get off. We'll leave that up to you. But thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have updates on the sediment management project. The first one I'll get into is a permitting update. We have received our Rule 5 permit, which actually gives us approval to disturb land and go ahead and start with the disposal site creation at the land-based site on South Shore Drive. The remaining permits are in the review phase, so there's the potential for public input. But honestly, I believe there's only about a 60-day, and we should be nearing at the end of this month about the 60-day review period and hearing back on those pretty soon. The testing that we did today was actually kind of started by a request from Army Corps of Engineers for us to get a snapshot of the health conditions in the overflow pond versus the lake proper. So what we did to kind of paint a picture today is we took full spectrum chemical test and algae samples from the overflow pond, also from the the Shuffle Creek pond as well, where it's vegetated. So you can see a similar condition pond with the vegetation, and then also one out in the center of the lake proper, just so we can say, you know, all right, here's the conditions in this pond, here's what it could potentially be with vegetation, and here's what it is in the lake. Try to provide a little snapshot of what the difference in water quality is and the benefits that we could potentially have if the wetland is indeed created there. So that's kind of what led this testing. We should have this report done in about 2 weeks. We're going to go ahead and send it up to FICO Tech, which is a company out of Northern Indiana, Southern Michigan, and that can really go ahead and analyze the data pretty quick and get a report to us. So that'll be pretty nice to actually have that, you know, at the same time snapshot on the same day conditions in those different areas. We've also gone ahead and given approval to Christopher Burke to begin the construction drawings and bid packets. They said that would probably take about a month, maybe a little bit more, to do the full construction design and bid. So we should have those in mid-September, and then we'll be able to go ahead and bid out the project properly then. What my plan kind of is for right now is to continue dredging through the end of September. Historically, October is a pretty dry month, and we're going to need a pretty dry month to begin doing earthwork at that site on South Shore Drive. So depending on the timing of when we finish Dorothy Lane, and if we want to add another one to the list, potentially, you know, with the board's approval, I'd like to go ahead and plan on by at the end of September, pulling off the water, getting our equipment over to that disposal site, and then hopefully being able to knock out a lot of the construction in-house prior to getting into the rainy season this fall. It seems like normally once you get into late November, December, we're picking up on rain again. So I'd like to go ahead and start working on that. I don't know if we need any action right now. That's kind of the plan. If we do finish Dorothy Lane, we had talked about a couple different zones for additional dredging if we have time. I don't know if we want to discuss that now or select one of those.
Well, one of them was in my district, and it was back by Jay Whittaker and around the corner from us. So
Right at the tip of Reed Point there.
Yes.
Mary Jane, did you have something?
I was just going to ask, how much longer do you think Dorothy Lane's going to take if things
That
if
was
things
my
go
question.
well?
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to take this long. Assuming we can move pretty quick and we're not continue to have issues in there, I would bet we have every bit of probably 3 weeks, better part of a month in there. So that may push us through pretty close. I know we could definitely start the tip of Reed Point there, and get at least where we can with the big barge, because it's relatively deep right at the beginning and then gets shallow. We will have to remove some lifts to even get to the back part of it, but we could at least get the beginning of it to where it narrows. So we could move on to there, and that'd be a pretty quick addition.
Okay.
So is
I
that
haven't-
a private, this is Debbie, is that a private dredging job then at Reed Point, or are we continuing to tack on dredging projects that we're paying for?
That would be an access dredging at the beginning of it until you're in the back of the channel. And earlier this year, when we were going over the different areas, that was, I believe, the third recommendation. So we're kind of keeping in line with what the year was.
Mary Jane?
Well, I hope we,
I have another question, general question. How's our space at Possum Trot for sediment? Just generally, I know you didn't come with that number.
I mean, we have plenty for this year. Next year we did up the budget to $20,000 to actually remove a bunch of sediment there. So I think once we get into next year and we start doing cleaning out the site, we'll be able to remove a lot of dirt with that $20,000. Last year I believe we spent close to 10, or this past spring, and just trucking it out from triaxles to a few local spots where people needed fill dirt. So I think we're doing pretty good, and we just needed to step up how much we remove each year, which we did in the budget this year. So I'm not concerned that it'll be gone anytime soon. I've actually started discussions too. I've been talking with some of the drivers and some of the big trucking companies around here to try to get on the radar. Hey, we need to get rid of dirt. Please take it.
Okay, good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Debbie, were you finished? Debbie? Oops. All right, I thought maybe she hadn't been done. Michael?
yeah, no, I think I'm done. I'd love to have a list, and maybe it's available, that just says, here are the final ones that we think we need to do, because it just seems like there's always something. And as I think about the salaries that we've added for dredgers and the budget and everything that we're doing, when I look at the, expenditures that we have, I mean, literally it does kind of keep me awake at night, kind of wondering. I just would like us to track it and have a record of it and have some agreement about, where we're going with this. I'd have to look back at those minutes. I don't know that, maybe it was in the Lake Health Task Force group and it never was reported back to the board.
I can provide you with that information. We do keep a running list of all the areas that we've dredged at and totals for every year, and then totals for the different areas. I mean, at some point, I believe there's a couple hundred different zones, and most of it happens in one. So if we wait around and say, once we hit every zone, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. I think at some point we got to say, hey, we're going to do some focus on private this year, maybe prioritize that, maybe do one zone at the beginning and then come back to it later on. Yeah, Laura?
I just wanted to say that this was always a part of the plan. If we had the time and the space for the silt, that was always a part of the plan, was to move into the Reed Point area. And that was the final one. And we did agree that next year we would focus on private dredging because we have a lot of those jobs to knock out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right, but
that was
the
that was my memory as well, Laura.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to raise a big stink about it, but I just, I heard Adam say, if we get done with Dorothy Lane, maybe we can fit a few more in, and he wants to shift to our bigger project. And so, I just don't, I think that timing all has to be right, and we need to prioritize.
Fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And if we have made a commitment, though, that we're going to finish that work at Reed Point, then we need to do that as well. We need to figure out how we're going to get both done.
Yep, absolutely.
I agree.
You were, Mike B, you had something?
Well, I have those lists too, probably the same as Adam has shared with me. And we are really getting close. I support going into Reed Point. If we have the time, we have the weather, we have the lake and disposal site like before. But and we are getting real close to having a complete LLCD dredging and moving into private. So this is one of the last pieces of fingers and coves that we really need to get into. So I support going into Reed Point as well. So when you get those lists, Adam, I'd like to see what you have to compare them to mine. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. I'll get that out.
I think we should all have a
Send
copy
it
of
to
it.
everyone.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll get those. We can update it with the most recent stuff on our master list, and then I'll get that out to the board.
Thank you.
Great.
Adam, is
Really,
that?
that's about it. Yeah.
Did
All right,
you,
yeah.
Adam, did you need, I'm sorry, did you need our approval on,
No, really, that was all just updates. So I think we're good to go.
We voted on that in February or March, I think.
Yep, we did.
Yep.
All right, that brings us again to the final discussion on the proposed LLCD budget. I believe that should actually say 2021 on the agenda, but no matter. We know what year we're talking about, I hope. Mike?
It says fees and charges first.
Yeah.
Here, is that what, did you want me to go there?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yes.
So everyone's got a copy of the fees and charges in the board packet. I'm just going to let it go open for discussion. I do have one question, Adam. How many subleases do we have on the lake?
Oh, active, I'd say probably about nearing 160.
160 subleases?
Yeah, I think there's like 180 potential, but not everybody does one. So I think it's right around 160.
Okay, just curious. I appreciate the spreadsheets that you sent out, but in
Mhm.
order to get the numbers of how many people are paying, you got to back it out with the cost. But I'm doing that.
Yeah, so I did send out the fee revenue projection sheet that kind of tells you what the maximum increases were. The ones with the highest potential increase would be the annual passes. Honestly, with the raise that we did last year, usually we take a couple years to do the raise. We'll do them, wait a few years, raise them again. That would be my recommendation, especially since we're starting to do some work for the board or with the park. I hate to raise the park fees again right after we did last year without any substantial improvements going on. There is a little bit of room in the boat passes, though, specifically in the annual passes for fee increases.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Why did we, when I looked at this, I went, what were we thinking when we raised the resident passes $2 on, from 19 to 20 and $4 on smaller boats? The $2 thing just seemed like not very much.
We went from 68 to 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just the discussion last year. I think we just decided to raise the non-resident rates more, and then we just kind of rounded up on the resident ones, just to have some type of increase.
And a round number.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think 80 is a good number. And it's round.
Les?
So zero, it's real.
They're all just numbers.
Well, the danger of all this is, you get kind of between a rock and a hard spot. You do a little bit every year, people might complain, but then when you put it off for several years and then you got to take a really big jump, then everybody gets all up in arms as well. And so, it's kind of a tough call to balance that out. That maybe, every couple of years we do something, just to kind of keep it in the cycle and stuff and not let it get away. Because, it's easy to all of a sudden 5 years later, like, oh, wow, we're way behind on this and we need to do something. I was going to check. I haven't been to a state park lately. Adam, do you happen to know what they currently charge? Are we on par with them?
They charge $8 for entry for the day.
Okay, and we
Exactly
do,
what we charge.
how much? We're,
$8 as well.
okay. I mean, I know when I was with the Forest Service, we always kind of look to keep in line with other entities around. But, you know, they're subsidized somewhat too by taxes, and well, I guess we are too, to a point, but.
Yeah.
Anyway, just throw that out there, to don't let it get away from us, you know.
But, and the other thing I would say, I think that's a good benchmark, but I don't mean this to sound quite as flippant as it's going to. We don't live in a state park. We live on Lake Lemon.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I would think that people would be more willing, because they have a place to use their boat the entire season, to pay a little more for that perk.
And as far as the boating passes, we're not in line with the state parks. I believe their annual passes, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, is it $20, $30?
I think it's 30 or 35 for
I
a
think so.
motor.
So 35 for a state lake annual pass for all those lakes, and we're, you know, at 100 right now. So
Yeah.
as far as the passes going, we're not in line, just the park.
Yeah. But you know, if we are looking for a raise in something, I know that Deb suggested raising the sublease fee, and that might be something. I mean, that's not been raised for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ever?
Correct, that's never been raised.
I mean, you know, if we raise it $50, I mean, you buy a bumper for something for your dock, it's $50, you know. Anymore,
Sure.
$50 isn't hardly anything. So maybe
Yeah.
that's one place we would do it. It would not impact the park users, only sublease holders.
Mike Blackwell, did you have something a minute ago?
I did. So we're charging non-residents $100 a year, but we're charging residents $70 a year. It's a $40 difference. But in a daily pass, a resident pays the same as a non-resident. So I guess, why are we going after freeholders? I don't think that we should be going after freeholders, that it is our lake, you know, what a discrepancy on an annual pass, $30, but on a daily pass, none. So, you know, I think if we were looking at maybe raising fees, that we would raise fees for non-resident participants. However, if a non-resident pays a CBU utility, then he becomes a resident. He or she becomes a resident. They get the discount. I think that now I have a question, Adam. If a guy pays $12 to enter the park, he or she also pays an additional $5 to launch.
Correct.
So it's $17.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you know, Geist Reservoir charges $25 and $30 on a daily basis. Not to mention that on a weekend, they charge even more than that. And that's for everybody. They don't have, you know, they're not a conservancy yet. But it just seems to me that we don't go after the freeholders, and that we go after maybe non-residents. And
so the current daily boat fee for over 10 horsepower is at $12. The maximum fee that we could charge is $13.31.
And where is that listed?
That's in the spreadsheet that I sent out under maximal allowable fees, and that is set in our contract how much we're actually allowed to raise those.
Our contract with CBU?
With CBU, yeah. So there's a potential of $1.31 would be the maximum potential increase that we could have
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't make much sense to me. I'd almost get with the CBU and let them know that we're charging $30 more for an annual pass, but we're not charging anything different for a daily pass.
Well, I think I could definitely reach out to them. I believe part of that, why we give the discount to the residents on the annual passes, is because we do collect taxes there. So that they do get the $30 discount on there. I think for part of that, I mean, it is the city of Bloomington owned public lake. So I want to think they want to keep access accessible to the utilizers in the area. I mean, I could reach out to them and ask about that.
Well, and I would include in that we're getting ready to borrow $1.2 million to save.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank
Exactly.
you,
Is it-
Yeah. I mean, I just, I go back to, you guys know how I feel. I think we should think about small increases. I totally agree with what Mike Blackwell just said. The residents are paying buku in taxes. That's true. I just think the lake was so busy this year, and the busyness seems like we have to maintain it more, and it creates issues and things like that. And I just think, I'm not trying to gouge people, but I think small increases are really reasonable. And I don't think it's going to affect, you know, the demand for the lake. So anyway.
Especially in these times. Can I interrupt just a minute? It looks like Michael Klitzing, are you trying to join us?
Yes, and I didn't realize I didn't have my video on.
Oh,
Can you hear me? There you go.
okay, now I can see it. There you go. Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Sorry, I'm late.
Not a problem. Okay.
One last thing I want to talk about is I'm going to take a page out of Les's book. I'm going to tell you what, the surf boats, and my brother's a surfer, but boy, I tell you what, I am on his page now to maybe impose more money on these, and I don't know how to do it, but because a boat comes into the gatehouse and that guy's not going to know, that guy or gal's not going to know if it's a surf boat, a ski boat, or a wakeboard boat. But I'm going to tell you, they are really coming on the lake. And Les,
Yeah.
they're coming out in droves. My brother's going to probably text me and ask me what the hell I'm talking about. But one fee for pontoon boats and one fee for, you know, whatever those are.
I'm in.
Okay.
I mean, I know, you know, and Alex was saying, you know, and working the gatehouse, this would be difficult to determine, but boy, I mean, we'd be charging them for the impact. I mean,
That's wear and tear.
All this erosion, you know, like my shoreline keeps getting smaller, and of course that all washes into the lake, and that's one of our major issues. I mean, maybe one of the things you do is, you know, you check to see if they got those ballast things in them. Now, my niece has a wake boat over on Sweetwater, but they do not allow them to use the ballast device. And so that is one way to tell, you know, who's who. And they actually have like a lake patrol, and they'll look at your boat. And if you have one, it has to be disabled and empty, you know, because they pump water into there to make them do all that. So I think it'd be easy enough to check. And plus you can kind of tell by looking at them. They got the big tower and all that kind of stuff on them. But I think we ought to charge extra, because, you know, we charge extra for jet skis because they can be kind of a pain. Okay. And I think we should charge extra for wake boats because they have such a high impact on the lake.
I may have
Let
to
me
go
ask
back.
you this: wouldn't it be like, don't most wake boats have you know, more horsepower engine? I mean, would that be a good way to cut it? You know, like on a fee, like if you got over whatever 250 or 300, or I don't know. It's a thought, but I can tell you that our ski boat, we have a ballast. We don't do the water stuff. You lower something in the back of the boat, you know, and then it creates the bigger wake for wakeboarding.
With the inboards, it's tough to tell on the power, and I think again, if we
Sure.
talk with a CBU again about the pricing, because I believe the over 10 and under 10 are in our contract with CBU, so we'd have to approach them about adding some more differentiation in the type of boats as far as pricing.
It is new technology and something that probably wasn't thought of back when that was put together.
Right.
I never heard of a wake boat 15
I
years
mean, I certainly think that there's justification in opening that discussion with CBU, because, I mean, we're working off of an agreement and pricing limitations that were based on, you know, quite some time
How many
ago.
years ago?
Right.
Yeah.
And the types and technologies that are available, the investment that we as a Conservancy district now are making into the lake, which saves the city significant funds, because otherwise they would ultimately be responsible for it. So I think there's some justifications for initiating those conversations and seeing if we can get a little bit more latitude on how the prices are set for admission to the lake.
Yeah, I'll reach out to CBU and start that discussion. I think it'd be great to definitely charge a higher pass for these types of wake boats. They do cause more damage. They do cause wave erosion. That'd be a way to maybe cut down use, but at least get funding, for what we have to do to manage it. So I'll follow up and I'll reach out to CBU and begin that discussion.
And
when do we have to have a decision on this? Like, when do we have to approve these fees and charges? This was just a discussion, right?
We generally
We don't have to approve anything.
We generally approve them next month at the first public hearing for the budget. I think if we're going to add in different fees, we can always go back. It's a resolution. We can always go back and we can amend the resolution and add to it. I don't think we'd have a decision from CBU by the time we pass this, but it's not locked in stone. This is separate from our budget. So we can go back. We can adjust these on an as-needed basis or add additional tiers to that.
It would be good to get the ball rolling now, though.
Yeah, I agree. I would also suggest that this would be a good topic in a newsletter so that freeholders understand the impact that different boats have. Because I'm not sure that anybody thinks that far.
And I think it would also be good to make sure that the freeholders know that we're looking at engaging discussions with CBU to see if we can start charging non-freeholders more money to help contribute towards what we're doing. So
Right.
Our goal isn't to
No,
just charge
I
our
think-
freeholders, but to make sure that those non-freeholders that are benefiting and enjoying the lake are more equitably contributing to the operations and maintenance of it.
Yeah, good point.
All right.
All right. So we're not making any decisions. We're going to start this ball rolling and
Yeah. Well,
go from there. One other quick addition. I've received some input about really relooking, should we ever go down the road of the sublease adjustments, really relooking at that whole system before we might make a rash move on that. I've never understood, nor does anyone else, I don't think, why certain people pay subleases and why certain ones don't. And if you look at a map, it still doesn't help. I mean, it's just very confusing. So I would think before we would do anything crazy on that, with only 160 people out of 520 using that right now, and I know they're not all, some are varying degrees of a freeholder may have one spot and then have another spot, but at any rate, I think we should be careful and tread a little bit lightly on that before we make a big raise.
I agree.
yeah, I think the whole thing could use a little revamp, and actually that's gonna be one of our goals over the winter time this year is to go out. Historically, the records haven't been very, very great. So over the past few years, trying to get it all in line, we're getting better and working on it. But I think there's definitely some changes that could make it much more reliable and easier to manage.
Yeah,
Okay.
But just to be clear, Pam, you're not suggesting, this is Debbie, just to be clear, we're not saying we're not raising them at all this year. We're not making that judgment right now, right?
We're not deciding that tonight. I just
Okay.
a cautionary statement just based on some input
Got ya.
that I would take
Okay.
into consideration. So
Yeah,
no.
All right, thank you.
That makes sense. I mean, there really is no rhyme or reason to it. Some people own into the lake,
Right.
and other
Right.
people don't. And then, people have a boathouse. And then my neighbor says, well, how come I can't have a boathouse? The people over there have got one, well, they go into the lake and my neighbor doesn't, but it doesn't seem to make any sense on how they acquired the property and who owns what. So, it would help if we could kind of look into that, like you said, make some sense out of it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's supposed to be based off if you're a riparian owner, meaning you own up to the water's edge, versus there's a lot of strips of CBU land around the lake, and there's even some spots that have never paid a sublease, and it looks like there is, a little bit of area there that's potentially CBU, but potentially an original board member lived there, and there's definitely some discrepancies around the lake. So I think the whole thing could could look at being revamped. I think.
And there's probably a pretty high likelihood that the water, I mean, at some point, their docks are on on the lake. They're in the lake. They're in the public area. So, yeah.
Mhm. And that's something, I mean, some other lakes do charge, just there's a set dock fee, like to have a dock at all in the water, since we do control up to the normal high water mark, and then potentially additional for the sublease. I think that'd be good. I think this fall, winter time, kind of look at that whole program and reassess it and go from there.
I think that makes good sense.
All right. Are we finished with that? That's A. B is a quick overview, I guess, our last public discussion of the 2021 budget, Mike.
And I'll go ahead and share the screen, Mike, and pull that
Thank
up.
All right. All right. I'll,
Excuse me,
yes.
this is Mary Jane. I think this is a good time for me to depart, so I won't interrupt you.
You're doing a hard stop.
I'm doing a hard stop here. You
Thanks,
guys
Mary
take
Jane.
care.
Enjoy your family Zoom meeting.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Let's see. So Adam has on the screen now our second fund that we have approved, and that is our Cumulative Conservancy Improvement Fund, budget fund code 2393, expecting in the year 2021, $45,000. And then to offset that, that will go to park capital improvements, park recreation improvements, non-park capital improvements, lake health improvements, and then we have an open category, 2005. There's really no set category, but those are the first four that the committee has established. And obviously we have room to add additional accounts there for that. That's going to be a really nice revenue stream for us. Okay. Thank you, Adam. As far as revenues, I'm just going to move right down the list here. Brown County property taxes increased to $5,000, 82,420 to 87,420. Monroe County property taxes increased $15,000, 234,580 to 249,580. Let's see. Now we have. Okay, now we have the Cumulative Improvement Fund 4055. Should that still be in there, Adam?
No, that was when you were initially looking at it. That is accounted for in the other fund.
Okay, so that really needs to be removed off of there. The 4055, because that's a separate fund.
Yeah, and on the one that I'm showing on the screen does not. That has been separated out.
Oh, okay, so the one you attached in the budget. Okay, thank you. So I guess I'll just look at the screen. I'm trying to look at the screen and look at my notes. Sorry about that, folks. All right, moving down the list. Park admission fees have been increased $1,000 from $44,000 to $45,000. Dredging riprap income increased $10,000 from $30,000 to $40,000. And then our sediment removal loan proceeds reduced $200,000 from $1,200,000 to $1 million. Next page, thank you, sir. Okay, wages, approximately a 3.2% increase in wages for next year for district manager, park operations supervisor, and the equipment operations supervisor. An increase in wages from $182,750 to $191,700. Obviously, with the hiring the equipment operations supervisor reduces some of our hourly and seasonal wages. And I'm sorry, folks, let me go to my notes. So the gate park attendant is 23,000 compared to 22,000 last year. Lake patrol is flat, 2,000. Push boat operator is decreased almost $2,500 from 12,000 to 9,500. That is because, well, we were paying a guy over $20 an hour, but we were paying Roger. How is Roger?
He's a little sore, a little
Okay.
sore.
So Roger's getting about $18.50 to $19 an hour. So we're planning on paying him about $9,500 next year. Push boat operator other, $5,700, reduced from $6,000. And push boat operator private, we increased that to $5,000. We anticipate doing a lot more private work next year. Thank you. Okay. Supplies. Merchant fees increased from $1,200 to $1,800, a $600 increase. Printer, copier, computer increased $200 from $800 to $1,000. Total for that category, $8,600 compared to $7,800 last year. Regular gas, we're assuming increases from $7,000 to $9,000. Diesel, oil, grease from $9,000 to $12,000. Total $21,000 compared to $16,000 this year. Repair and maintenance, basically the only increase there is riprap erosion control, increase of $3,000 from $15,000 to $18,000. Uniforms increased from $600 to $1,000. And signs and nautical markers, an increase of $2,000 from $3,000 to $5,000. $73,100 compared to $61,900 this year. And services and charges. Okay. Accounting services, I think they've charged us the same rate for quite a few years. So we increased them from $5,400 to $6,000. Grass mowing reduced from $15,000 to $10,860. We changed the name of consulting engineers to consulting services, category 6330. Kept that flat at $50,000. New category, professional development, we put in $1,500 there. Actually a decrease in that category. Moving on down the list, phone, email, internet, etc. Increase from $3,000 to $3,500. Hotel decreased from $300 to $0. Meals increased from $150 to $200. And subscriptions and memberships increased from $800 to $1,400, an increase of $600, possibly due to Constant Contact.
And Zoom.
And Zoom, thank you. And Zoom. Might as well make a note there. Newsletter, we don't use a newsletter that much anymore, so zero in that category. Ads and legal notices stayed flat at $500. Other printing reduced $300 from $1,500 to $1,200. Total for that reduced almost $900 in that category. Insurance, obviously we see an increase in insurance costs from $45,000 to $50,000, increase to $5,000. Down the line there, trash increase from $1,500 to $1,800, a $300 increase. Portalets increased from $2,000 to $3,000, a $1,000 increase. $11,350 in that category, up from $10,50 this year. Okay, buildings and grounds, increase of $5,000, $10,000 this year, expect $15,000 next year. Sluice gate inspection, we did none this year, $4,500 increase for next year. Water testing, an increase of $1,500 from $6,500 to $8,000. Let's see, contingency fund, an increase of $5,000 from $5,000 to $10,000. Dam spillway inspection, we didn't do one this year, we're expecting one next year at $5,000. A decrease in dam spillway repairs, $5,000 this year to $0 next year. And disposal site prep, an increase of $5,000 from $15,000 this year to $20,000 next year. Debt service bond repayment from $67,000 this year, an increase of $18,000 to $85,000 next year. Let's see. Debris removal, $1,500 this year, up $500 to $2,000 next year. Total for that category, grand total services and charges, $382,810 compared to $339,100 100 this year. And last page. The off-road truck, we bought one this year in 2020, so there'll be 0 this year for the off-road truck. Sediment mitigation, $950,000 for next year. Park improvement, an increase of $15,000 from $30,000 to $45,000. Let's see, is that right? We got 0 there.
So that park improvement, those funds, that 30,000 this year will be used for the master plan, and the next year the cumulative improvement fund, $45,000 will be used for park improvements.
That's going to be 0. Sorry, folks. I'm using my last month's sheet. Okay. Total expenditures budget, $1,687,810 for next year. This year, $1,807,750. Remember, we did do a resolution on a budget reduction. So we are still a net negative $30,000, $30,060 for 2021. And that should include that read of the 2021 budget. So I don't know, I went through there pretty quick. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Madam Chair?
Yes, sir. You're good?
Well, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that brings us to public comment. Can we get, let's see, I guess we can take this off the screen.
Pulling that up right
We will do
now.
public comment like we did last time. I think Adam is going to field the questions and comments.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and start the public comment section. I can look through. If you want your public comment, there's been some conversation there. Let's go ahead and start that now. If you'd like something read, let's go ahead and type it in there and we'll read it all for the public comment.
Is everybody still here? I can't see. Is Debbie still with us?
I'm here.
I'm still with you.
Okay, my
This is
screen-
Debbie.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go.
There we go.
That's better. I got it. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any new typing going on. I can go through briefly what was mentioned. Frank Van Overmeren said that lake access dredging will not end. It's better stated as that we have completed the high priority lake access projects and can balance lake access and private. Ron Thrasher said he'd heard there was an executive meeting on June 20th. The question was who called it? Second question, what was it called for? And third question, what was done or voted on? I don't know if you'd want to.
I'm happy to address that. I called that meeting in conjunction, collaboration with my board. What was number 2?
Just what was it called for?
It
And
was called, Ron, it was called under Indiana Code public access laws. We're allowed only a few times where we can have a non-public meeting. And in this case, it was called for receipt of information regarding alleged misconduct of a person over whom the LLCD has jurisdiction, in this case, a director and a freeholder. Next.
Lastly, when will audio be made available? Audio will not be available. It was an executive session, so the audio will not be released of the executive session.
And
Laura?
I just want to interject that the last part of that comment from Ron Thrasher was what action was taken, and there was none.
No action under Indiana law can be taken in an executive session.
Right, that's the law.
All right. Brenda Poindexter requests that when task and committee and Adam discuss plans for overflow lake, that 2 freeholders are essential as participants. Task and Adam discuss plans for overflow lake, that 2 freeholders are essential as participants. I'm not sure how to answer that one. Kathy McClure just stated that the newsletter cost is constant contact, and Catherine McClure said is the bond for 1.2 million, for 1 million. The bond is for 1.2 million. We do expect those funds this year. So next year we'll likely do a budget reduction, assuming we receive all the funds this year. Michael Kaffour, what is the thinking about removing the new truck from the bond issue so we can focus on what the funds are intended for? And I believe that's relating to utilizing the entire bond funds for dredging versus the equipment purchase. And I have heard a little bit of discussion with that from board members. I know we do have $200,000 that was budgeted in the bond for the purchase of the truck. The discussion that I've heard is, since it's at a 2.5%, about potentially paying that down with our in-house funds, utilizing the bond for dredging. I don't think that's ever been discussed in a public meeting. So right now the plan with the bond is $200,000 for the repayment of the loan from the truck, and the remainder for dredging.
And that's how Patty Zelmer, our attorney, is writing it up.
But
That
we might,
part of those bond proceeds are going to reimburse us for that.
right, but we did bring this up in the Lake Health Task Group just about a week ago. Adam, we talked about trying to extricate that truck from the bond, freeing up more money for moving dirt. And at that time, you didn't think it would be terribly difficult to do that. And I think there was an agreement, a consensus amongst those of us in the group that that might be prudent.
Yeah, we said that we'd
Well-
discuss it with the board about that. And I think one of the thinkings was that the rate is so low on that repayment of the truck. So that would definitely have to be a discussion with the board if we are going to do that. As far as if we do utilize the bond monies for the repayment, or we decide that we want to utilize our funds and not the bond to continue that, I don't think there would be any issues or any hangups on the potential of doing that. I think we have the clout to, utilize the bond monies for the dredging or the truck. So I would just need.
Well, yeah, I would just say that I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, and that when I first came on the board, I talked about the need to try to have some policy on our reserves and things of that nature. So I guess I'm just, saying the decision hasn't been made, and it has to be fully vetted.
Okay, I understand. I do think we need to reconsider it though, and happy to. I don't know if we need to get that on the docket then, probably for September. I don't know if there's an urgency here, or if it can be moved. I guess that's a question for Patty Zelmer, Adam, as to how we would proceed with this, any time restrictions, etc. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, with the funds, which I'm assuming are going to be open market, we do have the leeway to utilize the funds as we see fit. But I don't think a decision has to be made or needs to be made right now. If we have plenty of time for discussion on that topic.
Right. Well, as a board member, I guess I would like to kind of be brought into the loop about that. Like, what are the overall costs, and why do we have to shift a couple $100,000 that we hadn't intended to? So, but I totally agree with you. She basically is drawing that into the resolution to give us the opportunity to go back and repay ourselves for some of these things were originally anticipated to be part of the 1.2 million.
Right. Well, and my uneasiness with this has come from a while back, where we use that truck for all these other things. I was talking to Mike about this today. It's not just for the greater sediment management project. We use it every day for our access dredging and other things. So I could justify in my mind that it's for it's a multi-use scenario, not just for our big project.
And I think that'd be a good
Well,
thing.
we don't.
Call together a budget committee meeting and discuss that, and then bring it back to the board in September.
I'd
Right,
be
because we don't
interested-
have it.
Go ahead, Debbie, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we definitely have to do that, because the budget we're about to approve doesn't anticipate that we're going to be paying back on a quarterly basis, that $235,000. And if you're talking about just draining it out of our cash accounts, that's kind of another thing too. So I think we need to have the board involved in it.
Yeah, and the budget itself will, needs to be set at the end of this meeting, so we'll be presenting it as in September. And we do have $200,000 this year for the payment of the truck, which we have not utilized. We've only paid $12,000 our first payment for that short-term loan. So we do have money in the budget. So I think, yeah, we should have a discussion with the budget committee and then bring this back in September and go from there.
Yeah, I think-
Right, but the money in the budget is because of the 1.2 that was going to come in, and then we were going to spend the 950 or the million and then pay that off for the 200. But I don't want to belabor it, but
Yeah, I guess I would just be interested in hearing from the budget committee, the pros and cons of doing it, and that way we can make an informed decision.
Well, you mean your finance task group? Is that what you're talking about, or?
No, I mean, the budget committee that did the budget. So
Okay,
the board members, yeah, I would recommend we do the budget committee and not the finance task group.
before September?
Yes.
Okay. Debbie?
yes.
Yeah, I know that your mom fell and hurt herself, and then you're watching the twins. I still want to get with you on those emails I forwarded to you from the State Board of Accounts. Whenever you.
Right. And yeah, I'll take a look at those, but I really want to do that maybe in conjunction with Adam. I mean, I think if Adam can kind of lay out all those internal controls and the ones we have in place, and not, to me, it's kind of more of a, are we sure we've got everything in place? And I would think that, Adam
So
could
maybe
start
we
the
can-
ball rolling on it.
Maybe we can get a financial planning task group meeting scheduled. Thank
That
you.
sounds good. Last two comments are from Michael Gafor and asks if there's been any thinking of reducing the acreage dredged in areas 1 through 4. So zone 5 could possibly be dredged, which is east of Point Eidolon. As of now, I believe we're sticking with the original plan to start in zone 1 and move northwards as our budget allows and as capacity allows. And how can a comment be made to the budget committee? Really, I would just reach out to a representative, and then they can bring that to the committee. Pam is on the committee, so we'll be good. And that is all that's in public comment.
All right, that brings us to, I sound like a broken record. Our next meeting is scheduled to be going back to Thursdays, September 24th, back at the CBU, 6 o'clock. My inclination is we will still be Zooming at that time, but who knows? Once again, I feel like I've said this about 5 times already. If we are still Zooming, a quick thought is, and I would like to, I don't want to over inundate the office with correspondence, but I would like to know from our freeholders what is the most accessible time. 6 o'clock, we never knew why 6 o'clock was the meeting time on a Wednesday when that used to be the date, other than maybe people had to make a drive after work from town, etc. So it would be my thought we could start earlier, as we have been doing, if we need to keep with the Zoom format 4, 5, but I want to make sure if we go 4, we're not excluding people who are working and can't attend. So if, as a freeholder, you might email the office or your rep just to give us some kind of a gauge for what would make some sense in the next couple of weeks. All right, if there's nothing else, I would request a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Thank you, Laura.
Second?
Thank you, Michael. It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, roll call. Laura,
Aye.
Michael B,
Aye.
Les,
I
Michael K,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All ayes, a motion carries, and we are adjourned. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Pam.
you.